The suicide note was only 3 words long. I couldn't win. The billionaire's final message echoed through penthouse walls lined with awards, certificates, and photographs of handshakes with presidents. He had everything society told him to want, yet felt he had nothing. This paradox haunts our age. Why do those who seemingly win often feel like the ultimate losers, while those dismissed as failures sometimes radiate an inexplicable contentment? What if everything we've been taught about success and failure is not just wrong, but dangerously backwards? What if the very pursuit of winning in life's supposed game is the surest path to losing what matters most? Tonight, we'll explore how ancient wisdom and modern psychology converge on a startling conclusion. Being a loser might be the most enlightened state a human can achieve. Part 1. The Tyranny of the Winner's Narrative. We live in a civilization obsessed with ranking. From kindergarten gold stars to corporate ladder climbing, from social media follower counts to dating app swipe rates, we've constructed an elaborate scoring system for human worth. This isn't merely a modern phenomenon, it's the culmination of centuries of competitive thinking that has reached a fever pitch in our hyper-connected age. The word loser itself reveals our cultural pathology. Originally denoting someone who simply lost a specific contest, it has evolved into a comprehensive character assassination. To be called a loser today isn't just about failing at something. It's about failing at being human according to society's metrics. We've weaponized failure, transforming it from a neutral outcome into a moral judgment. But consider this: every winner requires losers to exist. The very concept of success is parasitic, feeding off the supposed failures of others. If everyone could be a winner, the term would become meaningless. This reveals the first crack in our winner-loser paradigm. It's a rigged game where the majority must lose for the few to win. We've created a system that mathematically guarantees most people will be labeled failures. The psychological cost is staggering. Anxiety, depression, and suicide rates correlate directly with societies that emphasize competitive achievement. South Korea, with its intense academic and professional pressure, has one of the world's highest suicide rates. Meanwhile, some of the world's happiest populations live in cultures that emphasize collective well-being over individual achievement. The data whispers what many dare not speak. Our obsession with winning is killing us. Part 2. Philosophical Case Studies. The Wisdom of Strategic Losing. 2,500 years ago, a Chinese sage named Lao Tzu proposed something revolutionary. The highest achievement is non-achievement. His concept of wu-wei, often translated as non-action, suggests that the most powerful force in the universe operates through yielding, not forcing. Water carves the hardest stone not through aggression, but through persistent gentleness. The valley, by being low and empty, nourishes all the mountains around it. Lao Tzu himself embodied this philosophy. While his contemporaries like Confucius sought political influence and social status, Lao Tzu reportedly worked as a humble librarian. When he finally left society, he did so quietly, leaving behind only the Tao Te Ching, a text that has influenced more people than the works of any emperor or general. The loser, who sought nothing, achieved immortal influence, while the winners of his era are footnotes in history. In modern terms, Lao Tzu would be considered the ultimate underachiever. No empire, no wealth, no followers during his lifetime. Yet his ideas about embracing the low position, accepting failure, and finding strength in apparent weakness have shaped billions of lives. He discovered what our culture is slowly learning. The frantic pursuit of success often leads away from what we actually want: peace, meaning, and authentic connection. If Lao Tzu was subtle in his rejection of conventional success, Diogenes of Sinope was explosively obvious. This 4th century BCE philosopher took being a loser to artistic extremes. He lived in a barrel, owned nothing but a cloak and a bowl, which he discarded after seeing a child drink from cupped hands, and delighted in mocking the powerful. When Alexander the Great found Diogenes sunbathing and offered to grant him any wish, Diogenes replied, "Stand out of my sunlight." Here was the most powerful man in the world. Offering unlimited resources to someone society would label a complete failure, and the failure dismissed him as a minor inconvenience. Alexander reportedly said, "If I were not Alexander, I would want to be Diogenes." The conqueror of the known world envied the man who had conquered his own desires. Diogenes pioneered what we might call aggressive non-achievement. He deliberately failed at every conventional marker of success, while succeeding magnificently at things that actually mattered: freedom from fear, independence from others' opinions, and the courage to live authentically. Modern psychology calls this internal locus of control, deriving worth from internal rather than external validation. Diogenes mastered this 2,400 years before we had a name for it. Viktor Frankl experienced the ultimate losing scenario 3 years in Nazi concentration camps, watching his family murdered, his life's work destroyed, and his body reduced to near skeletal proportions. By any reasonable measure, he had lost everything a human could lose. Yet from this absolute nadir, he developed insights that revolutionized psychology and helped millions find meaning in suffering. Frankl's key realization was that external circumstances cannot determine internal worth. Even when stripped of everything: health, family, dignity, hope, humans retain one fundamental freedom: the ability to choose their response to circumstances. The concentration camps, he observed, revealed that some prisoners maintained their humanity while others lost it, regardless of their previous social status, education, or wealth. The external winners of pre-war society often crumbled, while some who had been considered society's losers showed remarkable resilience. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, argues that happiness cannot be pursued directly. It ensues from meaningful activity. This directly contradicts our culture's happiness-chasing obsession. Frankl became influential not despite his ultimate losing experience, but because of how he transformed it into wisdom. He showed that being a loser, in conventional terms, might be the prerequisite for winning at what actually matters. Siddhartha Gautama was the ultimate winner, a prince with unlimited wealth, power, and pleasure. Yet at age 29, he abandoned it all to become what his society would consider a complete failure: a homeless wanderer seeking answers to suffering. He spent years practicing extreme asceticism, nearly dying from starvation, achieving nothing his culture valued. His breakthrough came when he realized that both extreme indulgence and extreme deprivation were paths to nowhere. He developed the middle way, a philosophy of moderation that rejects both the desperate pursuit of success and the equally desperate pursuit of failure. But here's the crucial point. He had to fail completely at being a conventional success before he could discover genuine wisdom. The Buddhist teaching suggests that our entire winner-loser framework is an illusion. Suffering comes from attachment to outcomes, wanting to be a winner and fearing being a loser. Enlightenment involves transcending this binary entirely. From this perspective, both the desperate achiever and the bitter failure are trapped in the same delusion. True freedom comes from stepping outside the game entirely. Part 3: Modern Relevance. The Digital Colosseum. Our digital age has weaponized the winner-loser dynamic in unprecedented ways. Social media platforms are essentially comparison engines, designed to make users feel inadequate so they'll continue scrolling, seeking the dopamine hit of validation. Instagram presents curated highlight reels as reality. LinkedIn transforms professional networking into performance art. And dating apps reduce complex human beings to swipeable commodities. The hustle culture that dominates modern discourse treats rest as weakness and contentment as complacency. Entrepreneurs boast about 80-hour work weeks. Students take Adderall to study longer, and entire industries exist to optimize human productivity. We've internalized the machine metaphor so completely that we judge ourselves by metrics designed for mechanical systems. Output, efficiency, growth, performance. But here's the paradox. The more desperately we pursue success, the more elusive it becomes. Anxiety and depression rates are highest among the most successful demographics. Tech executives use meditation retreats to escape the companies they built. Millionaire YouTubers speak openly about feeling empty despite their massive audiences. The tools we created to help us win are making us lose our sanity. Consider the phenomenon of successful people who suddenly drop out, the lawyer who becomes a yoga instructor, the investment banker who starts a small farm, the social media influencer who deletes their accounts. These aren't failures adapting to failure. They're winners discovering that winning at the wrong game is worse than losing. Meanwhile, researchers studying happiness consistently find that people with modest incomes and simple lifestyles often report higher life satisfaction than the wealthy. The Gallup World Poll revealed that emotional well-being increases with income only up to about $15,000 annually. Beyond that, additional money has diminishing returns on happiness. Yet we continue to structure our entire society around the assumption that more money equals more success equals more happiness. Part 4. Practical application. The art of strategic losing. How do we apply these insights to our daily lives without becoming nihilistic dropouts? The key isn't to reject all achievement, but to redefine what achievement means. Instead of external validation, we can pursue internal development. Instead of beating others, we can focus on understanding ourselves. Start by conducting an achievement audit. List your major life goals and honestly assess why you want them. How many are genuinely your desires versus internalized expectations from family, peers, or culture? The goal isn't to abandon all ambition, but to ensure your ambitions align with your actual values rather than society's scoreboard. Practice strategic failure. Choose low-stakes situations where you can deliberately fail and observe your reactions. Take an art class where you'll be terrible initially. Try a sport you'll never master. Sing karaoke badly. These experiences inoculate you against the fear of failure that keeps many people trapped in safe, unfulfilling choices. You discover that failing at something doesn't kill you. It often teaches you more than succeeding would have. Develop a loser's toolkit for social situations. When someone asks about your achievements, practice redirecting the conversation toward more meaningful topics. Instead of competing in status games, become curious about others' internal experiences. Ask questions that bypass surface-level success metrics. What's been challenging you lately? What are you learning about yourself? What brings you genuine satisfaction? Create space for non-productive activities. Schedule time for wandering without destinations, thinking without conclusions, and being without doing. This isn't laziness. It's reclaiming the parts of human experience that our productivity-obsessed culture has forgotten. Many breakthrough insights come during these unproductive moments when the mind isn't striving toward a goal. Most importantly, practice distinguishing between healthy striving and desperate achievement seeking. Healthy striving comes from genuine interest and care. Desperate achievement seeking comes from fear and inadequacy. Learn to recognize the difference in your body. Healthy motivation feels energizing, while desperate motivation feels draining and anxious. Part 5. The deeper game. Beyond success and failure. What emerges from this philosophical investigation is the possibility of playing an entirely different game, one where the traditional categories of winner and loser become irrelevant. This isn't about lowering standards or embracing mediocrity. It's about raising the stakes to what actually matters: wisdom, compassion, authenticity, and the capacity to face reality without delusion. The ancient Stoics had a concept called preferred indifference, things that are generally preferable but don't determine human worth. Wealth is preferable to poverty, health to sickness, success to failure, that none of these external circumstances can make you a better or worse person. Your worth comes from your character, your choices, and your response to circumstances beyond your control. Modern psychology supports this ancient wisdom. Research on resilience shows that people who maintain mental health through adversity share certain characteristics. They find meaning in difficulty, maintain perspective about temporary setbacks, focus on what they can control, and don't derive their identity from external achievements. These are precisely the qualities that traditional losers might develop more readily than conventional winners. Perhaps the ultimate insight is that the very concept of being a loser is a gift disguised as a curse. Those who fail at conventional success are forced to develop internal resources that the externally successful might never discover. They learn that survival doesn't depend on others' approval. They discover sources of meaning beyond material accumulation. They develop empathy for human struggle that those insulated by success might never cultivate. This doesn't mean we should romanticize poverty, failure, or suffering. These experiences are genuinely difficult and often unchosen. But it does mean we can recognize the hidden opportunities within what our culture labels as failure. Every rejection, every disappointment, every moment of feeling not good enough according to external standards is an invitation to discover internal sources of worth. The suicide note that opened our exploration, "I couldn't win," reveals the tragic consequence of mistaking life for a competition. The billionaire who wrote those words had won every game society offers, but had never learned to play the deeper game of being human. He accumulated everything except what mattered most: the capacity to find worth independent of achievement. What if, instead of teaching our children to be winners, we taught them to be wise? What if, instead of optimizing for success, we optimize for resilience, compassion, and authentic self-knowledge? What if we recognize that every person dismissed as a loser might be playing a more sophisticated game than the rest of us even recognize? The ancient Chinese have a saying, "The sage is guided by what he feels and not by what he sees." Perhaps the ultimate wisdom is learning to feel our way toward what genuinely matters, even if it looks like losing to those still trapped in the superficial game of external achievement. So here's the question that will follow you long after this exploration ends. In a world obsessed with winning, do you have the courage to lose magnificently at all the wrong games, so you might finally begin winning at the only game that actually matters, the game of becoming fully, authentically human? The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is give yourself permission to fail at being who others expect you to be, so you can succeed at being who you actually are.